Ever get that feeling like when you're watching one of those, slow motion train wrecks and you can't look away? That's kind of what it's felt like watching this whole Elon Musk Twitter or X, I guess we have to call it now, saga, especially with this whole showdown that's been going down in Brazil. I mean, we're kind of used to Musk, stirring things up online. But this time he kind of picked a fight that got real, like real fast and real world consequences. So we got some pretty interesting stuff to dig into today. A recent article from The Guardian about how Musk basically ended up backing down from this legal battle he was having with Brazilian courts. They basically wanted him to remove some stuff from X content, I guess is the word,
Yeah.
that they were flagging as like potential election misinformation, which, elections always a tense time. And Musk being Musk, he usually comes out swinging that, free speech flag that he loves so much. But Brazil, they weren't really messing around this time. So what happens when an unstoppable force meets, well, I guess in this case, an entire country's legal system?
And a country with a lot at stake too. I mean, this wasn't just some theoretical debate for Brazil. They've been dealing with a lot of political instability lately and the spread of misinformation online. Huge factor in that. So for them, this is about as real as it gets, a direct threat to their democratic processes.
Right. So you've basically got Musk on one side waving that, like I was saying, that free speech banner. And on the other side, you've got Brazil just trying to make sure their elections don't become, total chaos because of what's happening online. And that's where it gets really interesting because Brazil decided to, well, they took a stand, a bold one, I would even say. Their Supreme Court Justice, Alexandre de Moraes, he ended up blocking X in the entire country, like the whole country. Just let that sink in for a second. A major, major tech company basically shut down in a massive market like Brazil. That is not something you see every day.
No, no, not at all. And this really gets to the heart of the issue, right? Because you've got these incredibly powerful tech companies operating on a global scale, and then you've got individual countries trying to assert their own laws, their own values.
Yeah.
And sometimes those two things, well, they collide.
And in this case, the collision was pretty spectacular. I mean, Musk, he is not exactly known for backing down quietly, and he did not disappoint. There were some pretty heated tweets, let's just say. He even went so far as to call the judge an evil tyrant.
Yeah.
Subtlety isn't exactly part of his brand, is it? He also went ahead and shut down X's offices in Brazil, just completely refused to engage with the legal situation there. It was just, I don't know, classic Musk. Maximum disruption. But was there a strategy there?
Well, I mean, on the surface, it really did look like, pure Musk, impulsive, defiant, maybe even a bit reckless. But if we want to dig a little deeper here, you could maybe see it as this calculated gamble. Like, was he betting that Brazil wouldn't risk, scaring off other tech companies by playing hardball? Were they calling their bluff? Or was it truly, a matter of principle for him? I think this situation, it kind of gives us this, a glimpse into his leadership style, right? And his tolerance for risk, which is, let's be honest, very high.
It's wild though, right? Because I mean, as much as that sort of in your face, like I don't care attitude might be part of his whole persona, his brand. It's not like Musk hates money and cutting himself off from what is it, like 200 million Brazilian users. That's got to hurt at least a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about a significant chunk of users and potential revenue gone, just like that. And that's where this story gets, well, a little unpredictable. Because for all the, the big talk, the defiant tweets, all of that, Musk actually, well, he blinked. He ended up, he complied with most of what the court was asking for.
Really?
Paid the fines, appointed a legal representative down there, even took down some of the accounts that were causing the problems in the first place.
So, what are we supposed to take away from that? Did the quote-unquote free speech absolutist suddenly become, a convert to, following the rules?
I mean, stranger things have happened, I guess. But realistically, probably not. It just makes a lot more sense if you see it as a calculated business decision. Like I was saying, losing Brazil, that'd be a huge hit financially to X. And then there's the whole, the ripple effect. If Brazil's strategy actually works, then other countries, they might get some ideas, right? They might start pushing back against Musk, against X, especially around election time.
So maybe Musk realized that he'd kind of pushed things a little too far?
It's definitely possible, though I wouldn't go betting on this being the last we hear from him on this whole thing. This whole thing, it really taps into a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
Content moderation, where do you actually draw the line? When does free speech cross over into, protecting people from stuff that's actually harmful? And when you throw elections into the mix, forget about it. It gets really complicated.
Yeah, it's like trying to define like where a cloud begins and ends or something. It's just
Well,
constantly moving, no easy answers.
exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. You've got a tech CEO basically saying, like, my platform, my rules, and a country saying, not so fast, buddy. You're messing with our democracy here. We get a say, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it really brings up some big questions about power, about who gets to set the rules, especially in this digital age where everything's so interconnected.
And it's not like Musk's exactly been shy about, throwing his weight around in other parts of the world too. He's gotten into it with Australia, the EU, like almost like he's trying to see how far he can push things.
Yeah, and that's why what happens next is going to be so interesting to watch. Did Brazil stumble onto, like, a weakness in Musk's whole strategy? Will other countries get brave enough to try something similar?
Hmm.
Or was Brazil, like, a one-off? And Musk just goes back to, business as usual.
It's like almost, I don't know, there's this like Shakespearean quality to the whole thing. You've got this larger than life figure, this tech titan, and he gets, taken down a peg by a country that just decided, nope, not going to happen here. And everyone's watching, wondering what's next.
Story about power, for sure. About technology, about the future of how we even talk to each other, how we govern ourselves as societies.
Hmm.
It's a big deal. And it's definitely not over yet.
It's easy to get, I don't know, like wrapped up in the drama of it all, right? Like the tweets and the legal battles and just how audacious Musk is about the whole thing. But if we like zoom out for a second, what does this whole story actually tell us about where we're headed with all of this?
I think it really underscores this tension that's been building,
Yeah.
between that sort of early idealistic view of the internet, like this open and decentralized space for, anyone to say anything, and then the reality of how things are actually playing out now, especially with someone like Elon Musk, who, let's face it, has a lot of power when it comes to shaping that landscape.
Yeah. Right, because it's not even really about like what people are actually posting on X anymore, is it? It's that these platforms, Twitter, Facebook, all of them, they've just become so fundamental to how we like live our lives online, how we get our news, how we talk to each other, even how we form like opinions about the world.
Absolutely. They're practically like utilities at this point, would you say. And for a long time, governments, they've kind of taken this hands-off approach,
Hmm.
But this question of content moderation, it's forcing everyone to rethink that whole dynamic, especially when you start talking about elections or, just content that could actually cause harm in the real world.
Yeah, and you know what I think is really interesting is that Brazil's strategy, whether they meant to or not, it seemed to tap into a different kind of power. It wasn't just about legal arguments or fines. It was about sending a message.
Right. Like, we are not afraid to use what we have to protect what we value.
Exactly. And by basically saying we are willing to like take on a huge tech company to protect our democracy, they kind of shifted the whole balance of power, didn't they?
They did. They really did. And this is what I'm so curious to see what happens next.
Mhm.
Like, will this embolden other countries? Will they start flexing their muscle a little bit more, even if it means, ruffling some feathers in Silicon Valley?
Mhm. Yeah, because what started as this one very specific fight between, Musk and Brazil, it's kind of snowballed into something much bigger, hasn't it? Something that can really change how we think about online platforms and what responsibility they have on a global scale even.
Right. And for all of us, really, it comes down to these really fundamental questions like, who gets to decide what we see and hear online? Is it these tech CEOs? Is it the government? Is there a way to find some kind of middle ground, to protect free speech, but also protect democratic values, especially in this digital age where everything's so interconnected?
No easy answers, that's for sure. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this deep dive into Elon Musk's showdown with Brazil. It's a story about power, technology, and the future of the internet as we know it. And as we've seen, things are changing fast. So, until next time, keep asking those tough questions and stay engaged. The future of the internet might just depend on it.